Right, good evening. I'd like to call to order this regular board meeting of the Round Lake Area School District 116 Board of Education here in the Round Lake High School Media Center at 7:04 p.m. And if I can get started. All right, first up we have an agenda to approve. If I can get a motion to approve the agenda as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Larson. Already having that trouble. Great. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingman?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
And we have an approved agenda, and first up on that is communications to the board, and we have our BPAC update this evening.
Good evening, this is the BPAC report. Families and Nature. Our next nature walk is on Saturday, November 20 from 9 to 10 a.m. at Rolling Savannah Forest Preserve. Everyone is welcome to attend. Technology classes. We are going to start technology classes to learn Infinity Campus basic information. Our families need really basic information on how to see our students' grades, attendance, and homework. Our first class in this coming Friday, November 5 from 6 to 7 p.m. On November 12, we have our next workshop on mental health from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Cultural Civics Center with Mr. Ferney Ramirez in person. If you want to attend and need translation service, please contact Maria Colunga. And that's all for tonight, and thank you.
Thank you so very much. All right, next up is contracts under 1,000. I believe we do not have any, if I'm correct. All right, so next up is going to be public comment. And members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. A link to the electronic public comment form can be found in the weekly packets. Electronic public comments will be accepted up until the time the board reaches the public comment section of the meeting agenda. Do we have any electronic public comment? Seeing no electronic public comment, I do have one public comment card here in person, so we will turn the floor over to Ms. Laura Martinez. Just
hold the button down, if you would, right in the front there. Yep, and just hold it while you talk.
Okay, just hold. Okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I do have a concern about transportation and my kids from high school. And the first 2 years, which was 3 years ago, they did have a transportation. And for some reason this year, they were just not adding to any transportation. So I was wondering if I can get some solution about it.
So I will have Dr. Rowing. Would you please follow up tomorrow morning first thing with our public speaker? Typically, we don't do the problem solving here, but we've got your name, address, and phone number, and we will follow up with you first thing tomorrow morning.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Francisco and the Board of Education. Project Lead the Way staff have arranged for a variety of speakers to join the engineering design and development classes over the past week. Speakers include Hector Tellez from the class of 2019. Mr. Tellez spoke with students about his engineering pathway that started at the College of Lake County and led him to the University of Illinois at Chicago. Round Lake High School Choir Director Bobby Olson, also a guest speaker. Mr. Olson worked with students on their voice projection and presentation techniques. And we also had Oconomowoc Molded Products representative, Mr. Kramer. The only reason I know how to say that is I pass that town every time I drive up to Wisconsin. Mr. Kramer will discuss the manufacturing field and will share what students can expect as they transition their engineering solutions from prototyping to production. Certainly very grateful for those guest speakers. 2021 Illinois Council of Instructional Coaching Conference presentation. We are pleased to announce that Alice Elementary School Principal Scott Kabelka co-presented at the 2021 ICIC conference last week. The presentation was titled Commitments for the Instructional Leader, a Daily Challenge to Reflect and Practice Integrity. Mr. Kabelka and co-presenter Ms. Keith from Community Consolidated School District 15, which is Palatine, shared practical ways for educators to practice daily reflective exercises intended to improve and strengthen school culture. And lastly, I'd like to congratulate Becky Moran as she was named the Athletic Director of the Year by the Illinois Athletic Director Association for Division II. Ms. Moran's award will be moved into the state level for consideration next. Congratulations to her, and that concludes the superintendent's report for this meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. And any questions for Dr. Mendoza on the report? All right, hearing none, we will move on to committee reports. And I believe we had a Community Engagement Committee meeting today, so take it away.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so we had a rather full agenda. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at the packet, but there is going to be a rollout of a proposal for a 2-year strategic plan. It's implement a partnership plan, excuse me. It's going to be in partnership with National Network of Partnership Schools, NNPS, and they're affiliated with Johns Hopkins University. But basically, it is a partnership presentation that Heather rolled out to us that's still being worked on. But essentially, it's going to be a new way, kind of a comprehensive way to include parents in the community into our school partnerships. There is a lot of information in this packet, and it was just so wonderful. It was rolled out really nicely. But basically, if you got a chance to look through it, you can kind of see they were kind of going over some of the things that we used to do, ways that we were approaching partnerships, you know, maybe like an older way of approaching it, and now there's newer ways that they're implementing. It looks like they come in basically and train the staff essentially, well, they did with Miss Maria Kalunga and with Heather Bennett to kind of, I guess, create those partnerships and improve on them. And there's and if you guys want to pop in on any of this, you certainly can, because I'm struggling a little. But basically, they would go in kind of a 3-prong approach where it's like schools, families, and healthy communities, and then kind of branch out from there. When you look through the packet, you can kind of see they really break it down to brass tacks. But essentially, what they want to do is set up like an action team for partnerships, and each team would have 2 or 3 teachers, 2 or 3 parents or family members, the principal of the school, so not the assistant, but like actual principal. Some of the other people that they were saying would be partners on it would perhaps be PTO representatives, nurse counselors, parent liaisons, community partners, things of that nature. And then at the high school level, they wanted to include maybe 1 or 2 students to get their perspective as well. So it would be around like a 6 to 12 member partnership group in each community, like in each school. And then they would basically set up from there 1 or 2 academic goals, and then they would have a goal for behavioral, and then one goal for a welcoming school climate. So it kind of tiers down, but it all aligns with our strategic plan initiatives. So when you were looking through it and discussing it, they were giving kind of like an example. If you look at the packet on page 11, you can kind of see some of the examples that they were going through, but it would be specific to each school, and it's a year-long plan that they would do. So they were kind of going through in the packet some of the key things that would have in each of the like types of involvement. So if you look at it, for example, parenting, understanding child development, educators knowing families, things like that. Like if you look at it, there's like examples, but overall, it's set up as we're gonna be bringing it back in December. I think it was more firmed up, but the plan, I'm really excited about it. It looks like it's gonna really be a new approach to kind of including the community in a different way than we have in the past. So that's part of that was what we went over. And if you guys want to add to that, you certainly can.
A couple things stood out. One thing stood out was how the action team for partnerships, the intent is not to add additional work or add additional, it's to involve the parents and the community in the work that is happening on a building to building level. The second piece is only like $500 a year. It was actually a really good deal. The third piece, yeah, I know that stood out is Heather had shared the training and the work that they went to was some of the best training she's ever been through, ever. And I thought that was really, that spoke volumes to how excited she is and the work that she's looking to do with that.
And I'll just add one piece. So what I shared today with the committee is in draft form, and there's some pieces that we need to work through at district level too, before we bring back a final plan. And part of that is I met with Dr. Rolling and Mrs. Kiewitz last week to discuss the plan, and next step is working with our principals to get feedback on the proposed rollout and more details on what that plan actually consists of. So when we come back in December, I hope to have a more formalized plan with timelines, more final in nature based off of the feedback that we get this month.
I just want to thank the committee and Heather and the team for the work that was put into that. I think we'd all agree our parents and community are ridiculously important to the success of the school district. And it periodically gets challenging in terms of kind of embedding the parent support into the regular school programming. But what the team put together is clearly involving our families in the educational process, which is, I think, will help us move to another level. So I'm very, very excited about that perspective. So great job to the committee.
I'm very delighted about it too. I really think because we were discussing in the meeting, I think a lot of the parents want to be involved and just don't know how to get involved, and this kind of would address some of that. And then in the planning discussions, there's a wide variety of people that will be involved. So it's nice because they're going to be hitting, each tier of people that are going to be interacting with the children. So I think I'm very delighted about it, actually. I think it's going to be really good. So, okay, so that was the first portion of that. And then we did go over a manual, the communication department manual. That basically is just going to be like an internal document that is kind of showing new hires and anybody that wants like a refresher on some of our procedural things. So, like if you guys got a chance to look at it, it's actually kind of cool. There's a couple of really neat things in there I wanted to point out. Just there's a lot actually that they cover in that, but like do's and don'ts of our mascots, things like that, or how they're sending emails. But there were a couple of things I thought, and this is probably, of course, you guys will know all about this, but they have like requests that you can submit for translators for the staff, or they have, if they want to provide positive feedback on something that happened in the classroom, the teachers can do it through that. And I thought that was really, really neat because the teachers letting kind of their successes know kind of goes through the district. So I thought that was really sort of a positive thing that was set up. And I know it's been set up for a while, but it's just formulated in this booklet very easily, I think, for like a new person to access it. So also, if you guys want to add anything to that, you certainly can. Anyway, so that was that guide that we went over. And then the Parents Needs Assessment Survey, the results for that. Basically, we got really good feedback on this, I thought. Overall, if you got a chance to like look at it and check it out, we kind of got high marks, actually, overall on the information that we're conveying from, you know, the people that answered. It was both the parents and the students, I believe. So the only thing it looked like there was a couple things that stood out was it did seem to be that people preferred email or text receiving their information about the school overall. So that was something that was very consistent in the results, and something that was taken note of as well. So if you guys get a chance, I would encourage you to look at this packet because there was like a ton of information in it. There really was. It's hard to like condense it all because there was just so much. The final one was the social media analytics. And for that one, there's some information that's going to be brought forward in the next community engagement committee meeting, and I'll kind of review that over then too for the breakdown. But overall, it looked like we were improving on that is particularly Facebook, but they're going to be expanding that as well. So that's kind of all we had overall, I believe. Anything that you wanted to add?
Just with the social media reporting, we put the Facebook analytics into this, but we had a great conversation with Mrs. McGinley this morning about the packet, and she had some questions and feedback. One of the areas that we'll be bringing back next month is analytics for Twitter and Instagram as well, and we'll be including the number of posts that we're putting out for each of those platforms by school, and something else. And then we were able to just review the platforms that are allowable in district at this time. So just kind of spending some time over the next several days making sure that we're consistent across all buildings. Like, for example, TikTok and Snapchat are not platforms that we support at this time. Not that we won't in the future, but we just want to make sure that everybody's kind of adhering to those guidelines as they exist today.
Yeah, so that was the gist of it. But like I said, I do encourage you guys, if you get a chance, definitely look over, in particular, the first one, the Comprehensive Community Partnership Program. It's just a lot of information, and there's a lot of really good stuff in there. Okay, any questions or concerns, anybody?
I had some, because as Mrs. Bennett alluded to, I did look at the packet in great detail. So I'll start with the social media analytics, as you pointed out. The only thing I would add, in looking, we see around like high school, but we don't see the athletics. So if we can add that, because I know athletics has their own page. So it'd be nice to see athletics analytics as well. Because while it all falls under the high school, they push out their own social media. So I think it's imperative for us to see that as well. So if we can add that.
And along with that, we did talk about that this morning. I think there are some other larger groups within the high school that if we're tracking the athletics, and we also maybe want to be looking at the fine arts or those larger scale programs within the district.
Say, to that point, I know a lot of the sports have their individual ones as well under athletics. So you've got the full athletics one, but then you've got like a baseball and you've got volleyball.
Right. Those are groups I would love to see. And as Mrs. Bennett mentioned, seeing it across all the platforms, what we're pushing, and seeing which medias, which platforms where we're seeing that drive and who's driving them. While this is great, I don't think it gives us enough detail as a board. So that was that for that. Then let me go back. The communications department manual, I thought that was great. I did look at that. Coming from the organization I do, having a standard template for an email signature, I think that was great to see. for the school. So, you know, when anyone from our organization sends an email, we know where and who it came from. The only question I had asked was, how do we make sure new teachers are getting that? And how do we make sure we keep continuing pushing that information to even existing people in the organization? Because I know, like for us, sometimes we get lax and we make alterations to our signature, but my company, it's a no, you can't do that. This is our standard template. So that's the only other question I had.
And with this manual, it is in draft form as I presented it to the committee today. This still has to go through like our department.
Oh no, I know, but just when it is in full effect.
And with for the email signature, for example, that's something that we'll have to partner with the tech department on, and really all departments to ensure that we're remaining consistent in what's allowable. So everything that's in this manual is in draft form right now, but we'll be bringing it back once we get feedback from others.
Great. And then the last question or comment was the partnership program. I saw there's a bullet for allocate budget for planned activities, but in the timeline, I didn't see the budget line on there.
Right, and in the presentation on that timeline, on the slide, there's also a link to a more detailed proposed plan that we'll be working through with the principals, and that does include budget information within there. So the proposed plan that we don't really know exactly what it's going to look like this year. Anything that's spent this year will be paid for from existing budget dollars that we have within our accounts this year. And then building for 22-23, we'll be creating those documents for that school calendar plan, and all of it will include budget information.
Awesome. You know, I see budget and my eyes go right there. That's all I had. I think it was, you know, a great packet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we've got approval of open meeting minutes.
All right. I need a motion to approve the October 18th, 2021 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Questions? Roll call, please.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the employment report as listed, the accounts payable report in the amount of $987,616.30.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. DeVera?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
And that motion carries. All right, next up we have old business, and this is going to be our board position on the ISB proposed resolutions. We did briefly discuss this last time round, and we brought it back so that we can actually have motions on 5 different resolution committee recommendations. And first of all, let me open it up. Did anybody have any questions on the rest of the IASB recommendations that we did not seem to have any kind of issues with in general? All right, so hearing no questions there.
I'll read each motion individually. So there's time for discussion and people can vote. All right, the first one.
So before you do that, voting yes or no will be to support or not as listed, right?
Correct. We'll be voting yes or no as to whether or not you are saying yes to agree to the ISB's recommendation as listed.
Yes and no.
Yes.
But a yes.
A yes is a no.
The motions will read what the recommendation is from IASB. So it will be either no to adopt or to adopt, but it is straight out of the manual. So either we're agreeing with the recommendation or we're not. All right, ready? Okay. I need a motion to support the Resolutions Committee recommendation to not adopt 11 clean energy infrastructure federal funding.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVera, seconded by Ms. Klingler. Do we have any questions that we want to discuss in regards to this? Keeping in mind that the motion is to support whether or not you're supporting IASB's recommendation to not adopt the clean energy infrastructure federal funding. Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
No, sorry.
Yeah.
I had to think about it. No.
Mr. Francisco,
No.
Mr. DeVera,
No.
Mrs. Lee,
No.
Mrs. Larson,
No.
Mr. Jewett,
No.
Mrs. Klingler.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having like a moment. So if I say no, it means I want them to adopt that, right?
Correct.
So no.
All right. The motion does not carry, which means our board is instructing the vote to be yes in this case.
That's why I'm going to go slow.
We will send our people with an actual sheet of what to vote, correct?
All right. I need a motion to support the Resolutions Committee recommendation to adopt number 4, board member child care reimbursement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Any questions in regards to this one? Roll call, please.
Ms. Klingler,
So yes, I want to adopt that.
Mr. Jewett,
No.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
and Mr. DeVera,
I'm gonna go no on that one too.
Mr. Francisco,
No.
and Mrs. McGinley.
No.
The motion does not carry.
All right. I need a motion to support the Resolutions Committee recommendation to not adopt number 12, electric school buses charging stations federal funding.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mrs. Larson. Hearing no questions, roll call.
Mrs. Klingler,
So I think we should adopt that. So no.
Mr. Jewett,
No.
Mrs. Larson,
No.
Mrs. Lee,
No.
Mr. DeVera,
Yeah, no, it was on that one as well. That's a no. That'd be a big fat no.
okay. Mr. Francisco,
No.
Mrs. McGinley.
No.
Motion does not carry.
I need a motion to support the Resolutions Committee recommendation to not adopt number 15, child safe gun storage.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. DeVera, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Hold on. And that was mostly about safe gun storage at home, correct?
At home. This one is at home, correct. That's a
Correct.
great question.
Just
Again,
wanna
keep in mind,
clarify
this
before-
is verifying that this is to advocate or not advocate for increased safe gun storage at homes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
No.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler.
If I agree with the resolution to not adopt it, I'm saying no.
Oh, you're saying
just said
yes.
yes.
Excuse me. Dear Lord. Yes.
The motion carries.
Last one. I need a motion to support the resolutions committee recommendation to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions?
I'm double checking. This is the one that is.
This is the school safety plan that ultimately allows every individual, would advocate to allow each individual district to choose to arm or not arm their staff as they feel appropriate. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Francisco,
No.
Mrs. McGinley,
No.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
No.
Mrs. Larson,
No.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler.
No.
The motion does not carry. So make sure that I've got this right, guys. What we are saying then, based on this roll call, was on number 11, ISB's choice to not adopt. We're instructing our advocate to vote yes. On number 4, for board member childcare, ISB is recommending the vote be yes, but we are instructing no. For number 12, electric school buses, charging stations, federal funding, ISB is recommending no, but we are instructing yes. For number 15, child safe gun storage, ISB is recommending no, and we are concurring no. And for number 2, student safety and protection plan, ISB is recommending yes to adopt, and we are saying no. Thank you. And then the rest of them, all the additional resolutions, we are following ISB's recommendations. And Mr. Jewett, we will get you a list of that so that you have that to be able to reference. We will also include the slide rule in order to figure out how to interpret it, and we'll go forward with that. We disagreed, so we said yes. ISB was saying not to adopt. Do not scare me. All right, so we are through that old business, and now we are on to new business. And these are course proposals and curricular updates for school year 22-23. Take it away, gentlemen.
Good evening. So this is the time of year where we come to provide some requests for curricular updates. This year we are requesting 2 additional courses and then some significant overhauls of a couple of ELA courses. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to our Associate Principal, Dan Nicholas, to talk about those 2 courses.
And just to clarify, Dr. Rowing, tonight is not for approval, correct?
Correct. Tonight is for discussion.
Yep, I saw that in the packet. I just wanted to call that out. So.
Good evening. I'm really excited about both of these course opportunities for our students at the high school level. Excuse me. The first is a community civics class out of our social studies department. And it allows for students to meet their government requirement through community civics action. So they're going to still meet all of the requirements and requirements by the state mandates with coursework within class, but then as earning credit for, and again, meeting the government requirement at the senior level.
And fair statement to say that's basically competency-based ed course. I mean, this is the classic example of applying and using what you're learning and knowing to earn credit as opposed to just tying it directly to seat time. So I love the proposal.
Yeah, that's correct. And at the same time, hopefully that learning becomes more meaningful, and they will grow this program to hopefully create a larger impact kind of down the road.
So, nice.
Each one, go ahead.
No. Yeah, so I have a question in regards to that. So we're proponent to have the kids go out and do some civic responsibilities, and you mentioned going out, reaching out to community partners. So is that including reaching out and creating partnerships with all our respective village halls? Or what are you thinking? I guess I'm trying to get a feel for what that means.
Yeah, so I think it depends. So I know that Doug has been in contact with Avon Township. I know in the police department, for instance, I think Round Lake and Round Lake Beach, we have discussions with and some agreement with, and less so maybe at Heights. So it kind of depends on which local municipality or what organization it might be with. But I think its outreach is kind of where we can find it with our community members. I want to mention one more thing that's unrelated to that, just real quick. There's a financial estimate within the proposal. The large portion of that, if you open the document itself, is based on a projection of potential FTE, and at this point, that is a potential projection. So that cost may not be incurred at that level, if that makes sense.
So would it be greater or less than?
Less than.
Okay, good point. If it's greater.
Ms. McGinley is a strong proponent of less than.
So if I got this right, it would be taking basically taking a social studies course and cutting it, splitting it. You have this track or this track.
No, everyone within the course would be on the same track, so to speak, as far as their involvement within the class and then outside the room. But there are potential different tracks that it might look like. Your community involvement might look different than Kurt's community involvement, for instance. Yeah.
But I think what you're asking is we would still have a traditional government class and we would have this other class, so students could choose.
Yeah, so it's
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct. We also see this probably from just a scheduling standpoint only being one section next year just because of the scale. To have that many students outside the building and what they're so we're talking about a smaller start at this point as well. Yep. So the second course is a Spanish language application class, and so we have several students around Lake High School who've demonstrated high levels of proficiency as far as being bilingual, either with the seal of biliteracy or with passing the AP Spanish language exam, and those students are still in the high school. And we offer an AP Spanish literature course past AP Spanish language, but the AP Spanish literature course is literature. They're reading Spanish poetry, 16th century Spanish poetry. If you're really interested in literature, it's great, but if literature is not your thing, we don't offer a great opportunity for those students beyond AP Spanish language to continue with some Spanish curriculum that's not literature focused. So this class meets that need at the same time as providing some real world, again, learning experiences potentially within the district and potentially without. I know our team lead, Danny Navarro, has talked to Mano a Mano, for instance, and I know we have translation services that we have need of within our own district here, where we have students who would be proficient in translating potentially and could do that, again, at the real world experience level, but as part of a course and get credit for it. So this class similarly would offer some training in that, different forms of translations and how to translate, and then equip students to be able to kind of go out and do.
Questions?
Okay, well, the second part of the request is based on some desire to update some of our ELA work. So creative writing is a course that we have not run in some time. It's an elective within the English department. There's a desire to bring that course back to being active. It's going to require some update in the curriculum. Any questions on that?
Sorry, I was just going to say, do we have an anticipated number? Like, do we know what kind of student interest we have in that? I know several, so I'm just asking.
We will find that out come recommendation time, which happens about December, where students choose. So generally speaking, usually new electives like that would probably get 1, maybe 2 sections. And it is only a semester-long course. So we also might see an uptick in an opportunity for early grads. Right now, any early graduating senior takes speech as an additional English credit in order to meet their 4 years. So offering creative writing will give also our early grads another opportunity of a different course to gain that English credit. So I would anticipate we'd probably have at least 1 section just due to potential opportunities for our early graduates, but then also offer it maybe second semester as well if the student interest is there. The 2 classes for the middle schools. So is there room in the middle schools to offer those sections?
You're here.
So the middle school classes, they're not actually new courses. We're just looking to purchase some novels for our 6th and 7th grade ELA courses. So with the curriculum rewrite, with middle school that we did several years ago, we eliminated extended text to focus on some core foundational skills. Our scores are improving. Our kids are coming into the high school stronger. And so this year we rolled out an extended novel at our 8th grade classrooms this year. And so we are looking to do 6th and 7th grade for next year. So the information here is just for cost for us to purchase an extended text novel for both our 6th and 7th grade ELA class. So not a new course, just a material cost. Okay.
It's additional funding.
Thank you.
And that's also the case for the English 2 numbers that you see in there, English 2 prep and English 2 at the high school. Same process there.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Okay, so we'll bring this back in 2 weeks for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next up, if I am not mistaken, is positive occurrences time.
Well, I'm going to say I had an awesome time with the online parent-teacher conferences. I will make one suggestion on behalf of the fabulous faculty here, because my district also does online things. This year, my district went to a different platform that automatically cut off after 8 to 10 minutes, so you did not get stuck with parents for 20 minutes to a half hour. So that is something that I can pass along that information to the powers that be, because it was very helpful where I was at. But I had wonderful conversations with the teachers, and it was just so easy to get appointments and stuff. It was wonderful.
This is to that positive occurrence. The one thing I would ask that maybe we can bring back to the board is what kind of turnout we had in regards to the parent-teacher conferences, the engagement levels, and what kind of comparisons we may be able to see.
Also, parents like myself that went over 8 to 10 minutes, would we get cut off? And just so we can prepare for next time.
We would.
Yes,
Yes.
it's an automatic cutoff. You can't, even as the social worker, if I wanted to talk longer, it didn't allow me. So I would have to pick up the phone and make a scheduled appointment with the parent. So.
Do we want to have a recap on Guard Marching Band, Mrs. Klingler?
You knew I was gonna. So they went to University of Illinois, and it was like in the middle of the cornfields, but it was so good. They did amazing. I thought it was just a positive, wonderful experience. The schools that were there were very positive with each other. They were cheering each other on when they were walking on the stage, and I just thought it was so cool. And then at the end, they had the Illini do a showcase, which was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I don't know if you guys have ever got a chance to see it. I had not. So it was worth the 4-hour drive, essentially, 3.5, whatever it was. to go, but our team really showed up and they just looked amazing and they were so excited and it was really good. So thanks for letting me rant about it.
And speaking of really good marching bands in the middle of cornfields, ISU at the same weekend held their state marching band competition, and ISU Redbird Band kind of knows what they're doing too. So
I would say the Huskies do as well.
There you go.
So just gonna say.
See, we opened it up. It's open conversation.
I would be remiss if I did not say the Huskies are also good. But yeah, it was like a level I had not seen, so it was very impressive.
Another thing I'll add is I know last week we hosted regionals for volleyball. I know Round Lake didn't get to advance, but it was nice to know that our high school has hosted regionals for volleyball because it has been quite an extensive amount of time before we have hosted that.
And soccer had a really great first round matchup that they just unfortunately could not quite pull out, but it went to shots from the mark at the end, so it went to shootout, and yet another great season for the boys soccer team. And I already know that coaching staff is already on to the next year and on to the girls season as well. So great job there. Great job with the football program completing that season. Just we're kind of seeing all the seasons kind of wrapping up from the fall. We had several track and cross country athletes who represented very well at states and sectionals. So definitely a good job by all.
You know, in addition to that, a shout out to all the faculty that are doing like the clubs and everything else too, because you know all the musicals and just all the clubs and everything that are getting the kids back in and getting them back some sense of normalcy at all the different levels. That's like they're doing awesome.
Any last ones? All right, next up would be discussion or topics for future meetings. I already threw out the one for that follow-up, so sorry I could have held it till then.
If you guys could just give us a refresher on how the Goal 2 program works and the stipulations that are around that. I know we have a couple of new board members, and I don't know if we've ever gone over that.
Would a weekly suffice for that, or do you want it as a separate agenda item?
No, I think weekly is fine.
Okay.
Anything else on future agenda? Hearing none, then I will ask for a motion to convene in closed session, and give me a second so that I know what I'm supposed to be convening for a closed session for. I hope these are the proper ones. All right, if I can get a motion to convene in closed session for the discussion of employment matters, Section 5 ILCS 120-2C1, for collective negotiating matters, Section 5 ILCS 120/2C2, litigation and or claims, 5 ILCS 120/2C11, and closed meeting minutes, Section 5 ILCS 120/2C21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Javera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
All right, we will now convene in closed session. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. We look forward to seeing everyone again in 2 weeks. Have a great evening.